This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
Hello, college football fans, and welcome to the Primetime Podcast. My name is Ricky Widmer, and as always, I'm joined by the one, the only, young Brandon Swanson.
Hey.
And today we're kind of coming at you later in the week this week. Usually we're around Monday, Tuesday. It had some stuff going on this week. Couldn't get the podcast to you until later in the week. It's Thursday right now as we are recording this podcast, but we still got a jam-packed show for you guys. Going to be talking about Notre Dame. Should they be forced into a football conference? We're going to be talking about Utah and whether or not they have the stuff to run the table in the Pac-12, and then we're going to end the show talking some Big 12 football and the Michigan Wolverines. But let's start with the big headline of the podcast, Brandon. Your Notre Dame Fighting Irish, where they're going up against number 12 Clemson this week, and Dabo Swinney, who's the coach of Clemson, he didn't really say an opinion of it, like, they should be. Most coaches, they come out and say, well, they should be in a conference here, and I'll tell you why. He didn't exactly do that. He just said, you know what? I was asked whether or not they should be in a conference and play a 13-game schedule. He said, I gave an answer. My answer was yes. He's like, do I care about Notre Dame and what they do? No, I care about the Clemson Tigers. However, he still gave an answer that, yes, Notre Dame should be in a conference and play 13 games. What do you think about that? Should Notre Dame be in a conference?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, why shouldn't they be? I mean, I think every team should be in a conference. We shouldn't have this one team out there kind of by them, not rogue, but out there by themselves as like an independent. Like, we're still going to get our ranking, but we're going to have one less game, and it's going to look better for us. But ultimately, maybe it doesn't look better for them because of how things will go in the end when it comes down to who's going to make the playoff or not. But no, I mean, I think Notre Dame, I love them to death, but I think that they should be within a conference, because then that way they can say, hey, we did have that extra game. We won that game. We did everything we were supposed to in that sense. There you go. I mean, then no one can have anything against them. Not that I was going to say not that people do have something against them for not being in one, but I'm sure there are. I'm sure there are people who say, what's up with this? We have to be in a conference. Why can't we be like Notre Dame? What if we just left the conference and went and did what Notre Dame is doing right now, being by ourselves?
Kind of like what BYU did. They used to be in the Mountain West. Now they're an independent.
Yeah, so I think we want to encourage more teams to be in a conference than not be in a conference.
Well, and the thing I think of, and my answer for this is also, I don't think me and you are in disagreement here. Yes, but no. The reason being is with Notre Dame, I feel like right now, if they were forced to join a conference, they would join the ACC. And right now, the way they're scheduled, the little agreement they have Georgia Tech, Clemson, Pitt, Wake Forest. And Virginia. So 5 games from the ACC. That lets them play other games like Stanford to end the season. USC in the middle of this, or in 2 weeks, they're going to play USC. They also get to play teams like Texas that they played earlier in the year. Now, do I like that part? Do I like that, okay, they can branch out and play other ranked teams to help themselves in the playoffs? Yes. But at the same time, I just sit there and I'd rather have it one way or the other with Notre Dame. If you're going to go ahead and say, okay, we're going to make an agreement with the ACC to play, we got to play X amount of ACC teams a year, then I say yes, just fucking join the conference. Either be in the conference or don't be in the conference. That's my view on it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I mean, I think that, but I think that though, if they are in a conference, it really kind of just clears up any of those issues.
Yeah, but it hurts them in a way. I can see the side where, but Ricky, it hurts you because we don't get to play number 17 USC. We don't get to play number 18 Stanford. We don't get to play Texas. I mean, Texas isn't as good as Texas used to be, but they don't get to play those big name teams if they're in the ACC. Because as of right now, and I'm using Georgia Tech's schedule as kind of like the blueprint for the ACC. Georgia Tech plays 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games in the conference, 4 non-conference games. So that means Notre Dame would have to play 8 ACC games and 4 non-conference games.
Who's to say they have to be in the ACC?
Well, I'm saying right now, if we were to put them in a conference because of their agreement with the ACC, I think most people would put them in that conference. If it's me, personally, I think Notre Dame belongs in the Big Ten.
I was just going to say, that's what I think, too. There's no reason why they should be in the Atlantic Coastal Conference. They're not an Atlantic Coastal team.
Okay, the only reason why I can see their ties to the ACC is because, like, look at basketball. Basketball, they're in the ACC. That's only because the Big East is no longer what the Big East used to be. And in football, we don't even have the Big East anymore. It's now the American Athletic Conference. So, I mean, I kind of feel like maybe Notre Dame's thinking, well, yeah, we used to be in the Big East. Let's just move to the ACC because it's kind of like the same region of teams. However, I've always thought since I was a kid, ever since I've been playing the NCAA video games, when they added the feature to like move conferences in the offseason, first thing I would do is put Notre Dame in the Big Ten. Just boom, right there, Big Ten. Get a Big Ten Michigan game back going. They get to play the Buckeyes, Michigan State. You can get their Purdue rivalry. You can start a rivalry with Indiana. They're right there in the region. Why not be in the Big Ten? But I know a lot of you are probably screaming at your computer screens right now going, Ricky, geographics don't matter.
But Ricky, also the thing is, though, they wouldn't lose out on competition.
If they're in the Big Ten,
if you come to the Big Ten, you have competition. You have your elitist competition right there. I mean, that's where you're getting it. Those are your top teams right now. I mean, as opposed to, I guess, some of the teams that they're playing now. I mean, those are more top-tier teams. I mean, if anything, they can go to the SEC. But, I think that would not be a wise move. It doesn't make sense. Exactly, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And I'm looking right now, hypothetically, if they joined the Big Ten, the Big Ten would have to add another team. Originally, like my perfect world is I would add Notre Dame to the Big Ten East. I would add Missouri to the Big Ten West. And I know a ton of SEC fans just threw a stink at their computer screen because they're like, well, wait. You can't take Mizzou away from us. Mizzou's a good team. The only reason I would put Mizzou in the Big Ten West to add that other team is maybe it's because of my Illinois bias. I really hate and really miss the arch rivalry that we haven't gotten in football in forever. The Mizzou-Champaign, where they call it the arch rivalry, and they had like a picture of the St. Louis Arch. They'd play in St. Louis. I mean, when Illinois plays them in basketball.
Oh, it's a big rivalry.
It's a big rivalry. They get the bragging rights trophy, and I would love to see that again. That way you get Notre Dame in the Big Ten East with Penn State, Indiana. Well, Indiana's towards the bottom, but Michigan State, Ohio State, Michigan, Maryland, Rutgers, all these teams get a shot at Notre Dame. And, I mean, yeah, I said earlier, you don't get to play USC or Stanford if you do this. Take out USC and Stanford, number 17 and 18, put in Ohio State, Michigan State 1-2. Just gets better.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if I'm Notre Dame, I'm looking at where am I going to go that's going to make me look the best. Mm-hmm. That's what I would be. That's what I would be doing. But if they have contractual agreements, then that's what they have to ultimately stick to. That's what they have to go by.
And I mean, I'm looking at the ACC right now, and at the top 25, the ACC teams that are in the top 25 at the moment, Florida State's at 11, Clemson's at 12. We're going right down. They're the only two. Whereas, I mean, the Big Ten isn't that much better, but they're a little bit better. You got Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, you have Wisconsin, you have Northwestern. That's 5 teams compared to 2 between the 2 conferences. And I mean, it kind of, another thing that Dabo kind of mentioned, and you can kind of throw this into the Notre Dame joining a conference pot, it's kind of like how the Big 12 should have a 13-game schedule. Why don't they have that 13th game? Why don't they? Why don't they have that conference championship to solidify a winner? Why not make all Power Fives created equally?
It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, does it?
No.
I mean, but what were people thinking when they went through it? And, you know, this one's got a championship game. This one's got a championship game. But
the Big 12 used to.
But why do they take that away?
Well, here's what it used to be. You had the Big 12 conference as it is right now. However, you have to add in Nebraska, Colorado, Texas A&M, Missouri. All 4 of those teams used to be in the Big 12 conference. You got to take away, though, West Virginia because they used to be in the ACC, I believe, and TCU used to be in the Mountain West. You've got, first off, the first move was Nebraska says, bye, guys, we're going to go play in the Big 10. You have Colorado say, well, you know what? We're kind of at the bottom of the Big 12. We're going to go play with the Pac-12. More of a West Coast swing. Then you had the other move of Missouri and Texas A&M moving to the SEC to play better conferences. And I mean, you saw Missouri came in. They held their own right away. Texas A&M, it took them a little bit in a Johnny football to get their feet in the SEC play. And just to save themselves, the Big 12 had to add TCU, which now is looking like a good addition. And they had to add West Virginia as well.
Well, there you go. But I still don't think that makes sense that they have not then implemented themselves with a Big 12 championship game.
Because right now they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
5 and 5.
You could have that, but most of
We've
the time...
talked about this before, though. We have talked about this before.
Yeah, but just to bring it up a little bit, not really in depth, but the big thing is you got to have 6. Because the thing is, if you've got the 5 and 5, that means, okay, let me take TCU, for example. Whatever division they're in, that's 4 divisional games, and then you're going to play, like, the other 5 teams in the other division? I know you can say, well, Ricky, why not just have them like they do now? Everybody plays each other, so you get no weird tiebreakers, and just have the top 2 teams. Or if you want to split them up into divisions, because everyone's playing each other anyways, you can just have, boom, division, who goes on? You could do that.
Yeah, I'm one of those people saying that.
If everyone's going to play each other, then I see no point not to, because everyone's going to play each other anyways, and you don't have to figure out, well, okay, you got to play its entire division, and we got to pick a few from here. No. Everyone's going to play each other, and that's just how it's going to work. And I mean, getting back to Notre Dame, we talked about the ACC, but I think just the bottom line on it is if they joined a conference, it would not hurt them as much as people would think. But let's move on to the other teams we're going to talk about. Utah. I want to talk to them first. Let's go West Coast before we come back to the Midwest. Utah getting a huge win this past week. Well, I could say last week because we're already into week 5 of college football. 62-20 over the Oregon Ducks. Brandon, I'm going to ask you this question. Can the Utah Utes win the Pac-12 South?
Well, right now they're making a good case for it, aren't they? I along with a lot of other people, didn't expect to see that score. In all honesty, I wasn't able to watch any college football this past weekend due to job responsibilities. But when I was sitting at home on Sunday morning and saw that come across the screen on the bottom, I couldn't believe it. 62-20.
Not just the score, it's who they beat.
Oregon, yeah.
Oregon.
Oh,
they
yeah.
beat the powerhouse themselves.
Oh, I know.
Oregon.
But that's why I'm saying that. I mean, by such a total 42-point difference.
Just a little bit of kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Just, this may blow your mind. It may not. Preseason rankings. Oregon, number 7 in the country. Utah, not even in the top 25 with 36 votes. We're 4 weeks through the college football season. Utah's now at 10 with a number 1 vote because I'm assuming that their coach voted them number 1, but they got one number 1 vote. Oregon dropped out of the rankings this week. They would be at 27 if we extended it to the top 27. They had 64 votes this week. Not enough to get into the top 25, though. So kind of just a reversal of, hey, you know what? You were in the top 10. We were unranked. Yeah, how does it feel? Kind of a thing for Utah to Oregon.
Yeah, I can't believe it, though. I mean, I guess I'm still in shock. I'm still in shock by that. Mm-hmm. I mean, seeing that on the bottom of the screen and then realizing that, you know, all this stuff with Vernon Adams comes over. He comes in. He's going to be this, quote unquote, he's going to be the savior. He's going to be this guy, guy.
I wouldn't say the savior.
No, I think so. Not the savior, but the guy who's going to take Oregon to the next level because
keep them at that level, that national championship level.
No, next level.
To win
because I think people really thought
they haven't won. You're right.
Losing Marcus Mariota, big loss. They don't have him. They need a guy to step in who's going to give them the confidence and the talent to get there. And right now, they ain't getting there.
Do you want a fun fact I learned about Marcus Mariota coming into last week of the NFL season?
Yeah.
Apparently, him and Johnny Manziel were almost teammates at Oregon.
Wow.
Johnny Manziel apparently was committed to Oregon. They got Mariota, and something happened with Johnny football where he decided to go to Texas A&M instead. Could you imagine if they would have been teammates at Oregon?
Well, one of them wouldn't have ended up the way. Well, Johnny Manziel kind of sucks now. But...
Well, Johnny Manziel played, 2 years before Mariota got good?
Yeah.
So maybe Johnny Football becomes Johnny Football, and then Mariota has to replace Johnny Football.
Yeah.
But I don't know if Johnny Football becomes Johnny Football if he's not a Texas A&M Aggie. Here's the thing about Utah, though, that, I mean, I don't... Utes fans, I don't want to feel like I'm a Utah doubter, but I'm going to doubt a little bit because this week they go up against, or not this week, next week, they go up against Cal. They got the bye this week. They go up against, right now, 24 Cal. October 24th at USC. November 21st versus UCLA. Those are 3 big opponents. Maybe USC. I mean, if Stanford could go into Southern Cal and beat them, I think Utah could, especially like if you can go into Eugene and beat the Ducks 62-20. You could go into LA.
You didn't just beat the Ducks. You plucked them of all their feathers.
You could go into Southern Cal and beat the Trojans, especially if the Cardinal could. The game I'm interested in is I cannot wait for that November 21st game. I can't wait. At Utah, UCLA, Utah, that's going to be the game that everyone's talking about that week. I'm going to call it right now. College Game Day is going to be at that. They're going to be in Utah that day. They're going to be there that Saturday because the Pac-12 South is going to ride on that game. That's going to be the semifinal to get into the Pac-12 title game.
And I think I know who you're rooting for.
I don't know.
I think I already know who you're rooting for.
Who do you think?
Oh, Utah. All the way.
See,
teams get good, and Ricky quickly jumps on the bandwagon with them.
Look at BYU.
Utah's won 3 games in a row. I'm going to pick them.
What about BYU? How I jumped on that bandwagon.
I know. That's how you are.
And then they lost by 1 point to UCLA. I don't know, though. UCLA's been a team that they surprised me this year because, I mean, who knew that the freshman quarterback Rosen was going to do it, except for the BYU game where he didn't look that great. He hasn't looked. That's been the only game where he looked like a freshman. Am I wrong? So, I mean, I kind of want to side with. If you had to ask me right now who's going to win that game, I'd go Jim Moore's Bruins. However, if both these teams continue to win, it could get a little interesting. It also could get interesting if Arizona decides to play upset to Utah the week before they play the Bruins.
Well, see, I think right now with the UCLA game and the UCLA-Utah game is going to be interesting, and it's going to be, I think, for me mainly, because I think it's a game if we have Rosen playing quarterback the way he has shown that he can play quarterback. That game, what was it, against BYU where they won by 1 point. 3
INTs, I believe, in that game.
But I think he had 3 interceptions in the first half.
Yeah.
It was ugly. If he plays like that, Utah will trounce him. He has got to play better to be able to make that game even noteworthy.
Can we flip over to the other side of the Pac-12 too?
Yeah.
Because there's a team, and I'm sorry I overlooked them in the intro to this podcast, but they weren't even ranked in the top 25 AP, in our MVP preseason top 25. 4-0, 1-0 in the conference right now. I know it's early, but can Cal make a run? What's the odds we see either a Utah Cal or a UCLA Cal? Because right now, to me,
are you talking like in the playoff?
In the Pac-12 title game.
Oh, in the Pac-12
in the Pac-12
I thought you were
title
talking
game.
playoff. I'm like, Ricky,
No,
I don't think so, man.
No, Pac-12 title game. Because the Pac-12 North may not have been as a runaway race for Oregon as we thought. Because in the preseason, me and you were on the same page. Oregon runs. We were like, this was our Pac-12 podcast in a nutshell. Oregon runs away with the North. UCLA, USC, Arizona, and Arizona State. We didn't even mention Utah. They're fighting it out for the Pac-12 South. This is what I love about college football, by the way. How wrong you are. And I'm not saying like you personally. I just mean the collective you. We could say, me especially, because we know how I love bold prediction Mondays, but we could say anything we want in the preseason, and we just get proven wrong. Once the games actually matter, we get proven wrong. I mean, Oregon, who thought Oregon would be 2-2, 0-1 in the Pac-12 entering week 5 of the season? Unranked.
No, I don't think so. I don't think anyone would have known that. And I think that's one of the most exciting parts of college football, because you know you're going to be wrong, but you don't know who you're going to be wrong about, and you don't know who that sleeper's going to be that just rises up and becomes this star of a team. And I love that about college football. I absolutely do.
Can I make I'm not going to say this is going to happen, but I am going to say I'm kind of going to make a bold prediction without actually making the prediction. You ready? I feel like if Cal, with their schedule of, here's some big teams they have to play in conference. At Utah, at UCLA, home against USC, at Stanford. Those are the ranked ones. They also have to play at Eugene. If they go undefeated this season and win the Pac-12, part of me feels like two things will happen.
You're talking about Cal?
Cal, the Golden Bears. Two things will happen if they go undefeated this season. One, they could have enough to get into the playoff. Could have enough to get into the playoff. And the only reason I think they get in is because Michigan State, Ohio State, whoever loses their game against each other is sitting at home. And that we're going to take that little thing I just said, we're going to push it over to the side for our last talking point on this podcast. So I'll come back to Ohio State and Michigan State. But also, Cal quarterback Jared Goff, if he comes out, if they go undefeated this season and they make the playoff, he will be drafted in the first round of the NFL draft. Because somebody in the NFL that needs a quarterback is going to bite on him. I'm not getting into whether he should be a first rounder, shouldn't be. If they go undefeated and make the college football playoff, we're going to be talking about Jared Goff, first round draft pick for somebody in the 2016 draft.
Well, here's the thing. I'll make it very simple for you.
Okay.
He won't be because that's not going to happen.
Unless the Cardinals want him. Cardinals get a late draft pick. They go ahead and take the quarterback out of California.
Sorry, Ricky. It's not going to happen.
Didn't Aaron Rodgers go to Cal? Or is that his brother? I thought Aaron Rodgers went to Cal. He was from Wisconsin, but went to Cal.
I don't remember where Aaron Rodgers went, nor do I give a shit.
Brandon doesn't care because he's a Bears fan. But I'm going to give you this before we move on to the last talking point. First, Utah. Give me right now, entering week 5, I know it's early, percentage that they win the Pac-12 South.
I'll go 50.
I was going to say 50, but I'm going to go 40. 40%. And the only reason I'm going 40, there's a sliver of a chance that the Trojans do it. I wanted to say 50-50 between them and the Bruins.
Well, because I was going to say...
Sliver of chance for the Trojans.
Because I was going to say, I'm still surprised that you were on the USC bandwagon for week 1, week 2, week 3, and now we're here.
And maybe I've fallen down to earth. And also, I did some research. Aaron Rodgers went to college in California, born in California, went to... Oh, I had it, the college. He went to Cal. I believe it's on here. I just lost it. No, he did. Yeah, he did go to Cal. I was thinking of Colin Kaepernick. Kaepernick plays in California. He was the Wisconsin boy, grew up cheering for the Packers. So I had A-Raj and Kaepernick mixed in my head. The other Pac-12 team, same thing. Percentage, Cal wins the North.
Well...
I mean, who do you want? Cal, Stanford, Washington State's only a game behind Cal.
Well...
But Washington State hasn't played a conference game yet.
I'm going to have to probably go with about 70% on that one.
I was going to say 75 to 70% as well, especially with... I don't want to say how bad Oregon has looked, but how bad Oregon has looked.
Yeah. It's like you didn't even say
season. Here's the last thing I want to talk about in this podcast. Earlier today, I got a tweet. Didn't get to listen to it before we started to record this podcast. I played it for both of us. Today, Colin Cowherd on The Herd, on now Fox Sports 1, had FS1 analyst Joel Klatt on, and they were talking Michigan football. And Klatt said something that may ruffle some feathers in the Big Ten, but I was saying this way before in our prediction videos. He said the clear statement, Michigan will beat either Ohio State or Michigan State this season. What do you think?
I think that...
He's not saying both. He's saying one or the other.
One or the other. Well, I think that people are really quick to be able to say, hey, this team's doing really well right now. I think they'll probably go in and, beat whoever and whoever and whoever. Mm-hmm. But I don't know about that. I think that Michigan really has not, personally, they haven't played anybody to me. They really haven't. They played
not
Utah.
Even BYU, who was ranked?
They played Utah before Utah was Utah. Mm-hmm. They played Oregon State, UNLV, and then they played BYU. Maybe BYU wasn't exactly who we thought they were either. They played a Utah...
Did we let them off the hook?
We let them off the damn hook. No, but like Utah, maybe they played Utah, they lost to Utah, but maybe Utah really is that good team. Mm-hmm. They played BYU, they whooped BYU in a shutout, 31-0. Maybe BYU isn't so good. Michigan, they've got to win a couple more games for me, handily, to be able to, for me to say, oh yeah, okay. Like Maryland, they're playing Maryland this weekend. If they get a big win there, okay, maybe I trust them a little bit more. Then they play Northwestern. They get a big win against Northwestern. Okay, now we got Michigan State on the schedule. Okay, maybe they'll give them a game, but I don't know about that. Michigan State's pretty darn good. They didn't get to number 2 by playing some sissy-ass teams. They got to number 2 because they are a monster of a team.
So, I may have done something during the preseason that coming into this podcast, I didn't think I did this. So, coming into this podcast, before me and Brandon hit the record button, my early thought was, yeah, they'll beat one of them, Ohio State. Look at how Ohio State has struggled this year. If NIU could almost beat Ohio State, a Jim Harbaugh coached Michigan team with Jabril Peppers, with Rudock, if he starts playing like he's been playing of late, if Ty Isaac has a big game with, it seems like they're kind of running back flavor of the week. However, me in my preseason haste, I did not only have Ohio State losing to Michigan, but I had Michigan State losing to Michigan as well. So the way I have it going down, if we're going by my preseason rankings or predictions, Michigan beats Ohio State, Michigan beats Michigan State, Ohio State beats Michigan State. So the way, if we go by that, my Big Ten standings would look on that side of the bracket: Michigan number 1, Ohio State number 2, Michigan State number 3. I am going to change it after seeing some football. I'm not sure that the Spartans lose to the Wolverines, but I'm quite positive, probably 90% positive, that the Buckeyes fall to Michigan State, especially if the Spartans beat them. If the Spartans can beat Ohio State, no question, giving that game to the Wolverines. The OSU game, I'm saying. Well, OSU doesn't look like the same team they were last year.
Well, Ricky, what I'm going to do is when we're done here with the podcast, I'm going to get on the phone and call you a nice doctor because you're nuts.
Am I talking crazy talk, Brandon?
As I heard a term a couple of weekends ago that doesn't make much sense to me. It was in a song, and I can't remember what the song was called, but
okay.
In the song it said, "You talking out your necklace." So that's what you're doing. I don't know what that means.
I'm talking out my necklace.
You're not even wearing a necklace. I don't know what that means.
Jinx, show me a Coke, by the way.
But
do kids still say that? Jinx, show me a Coke?
Jinx, show me a soda.
Coke soda, same thing.
Coke soda bubbler.
But no, I seriously think, like,
I don't know. I don't know. Even with where Ohio State is right now, they're not the Ohio State from last year. They're clearly not. And
Cardale Jones is the reason.
Well, Cardale Jones really needs to get his act together. Otherwise, it's going to be. It's going to be JT Barrett. It's as simple as that. If he cannot perform well, it's going to be Barrett. And I think it was Urban Meyer that said, I'm going to stick with him. He did all right. He performed okay. I'm still going to go with him. So as long as the coach continues to go with him, I'm going with him.
You know what I mean?
And I agree with the decision to go with him. But, I think that if there's more poor decision making, he's got to go. And if there's more poor decision making, he does not go. By the time they got to play Michigan, yeah, maybe then we have ourselves a ball game, and it's in favor of Michigan. But I don't know, Ricky. I don't know. I wouldn't say straight up they beat both of them. What were you smoking back then?
Preseason haste. That's what I said. And you know what's another reason why not only a well-coached, I have to say the phrase, well-coached Jim Harbaugh team when I talk about Michigan, because we're seeing it right now. Last year, Michigan is they're not 3-1 at this point. They're 1-3. They probably lose to Oregon State, beat UNLV, lose to BYU if they're coached by Brady Hoke right now.
You know what it's all about, though, right? That when Harbaugh came
coaching?
in... No.
Harbaugh knows how to coach?
No, that's not it.
His khakis.
Not his. Harbaugh came in. He gave every player on the team a brand new pair of khakis, and he said, guys, this is going to lead us to victory. It's not my khakis, but yours that'll do it.
Wear your khakis to class every day. But I mean, I really, with all the success, the early three, I'm going to call 3-1 a success for the Wolverines, I got to give it all to Harbaugh, because the thing about Jim Harbaugh, no matter where he's gone, he's proved that, hey, well-coached teams can win games. I mean, look at his time at Stanford. Stanford wasn't no joke. Then look at his time in the NFL. Like, he goes to the NFL, and the big thing I remember saying on the onside kick was, okay, we got to see what happens here, because usually coaches don't make that jump from college to pro and have success like that.
A lot of them don't have success ever.
At all. But he goes from 2010, a 12-1 overall season, 8-1 with Stanford, a win in the Orange Bowl. He goes to San Fran in 2011, boom, 13-3, an NFC championship bid. Lost to the Giants, who we all know what the Giants did. They do what they always do, beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl. It's just what they do. Then it's like, oh, well, you know what? Fluke year for Harbaugh. Next year, 11-4-1. Oh, only a Super Bowl appearance, which he lost to his brother. 2013, this is the year he falls off. 12-4. NFC championship appearance. Then we had, okay, this was it. The fall off, the 8-8 season, what drove him to Michigan State. And Michigan State.
An 8-8 season would have got you a contract extension with the Chicago Bears.
Probably.
Just saying.
But hey, could be worse. You could have Mark Trestman right now. Here's the thing, though, with Harbaugh, and which could make his he could start his Michigan tenure out better than anything else. He was originally with San Diego, Pioneer Football League. His first season there, 7-4, 4-1 in the conference. The next season, 11-1, 4-0 in conference. The next year, 11-1, 7-0 in conference. Then he goes to Stanford. Okay, took over Stanford at a 4-8 season. Each year got better. 4 wins, 5 wins, 8 wins. Boom. Andrew Luck, 12 wins. That's just how it was. And I think we're seeing Jim Harbaugh say, hey, you know what? I'm a good coach. I can do it with Michigan. And Ohio State fans, do not get me wrong. I know you've already rage typed at this point because I'm talking about how great of a coach Jim Harbaugh is. Urban Meyer is still a great coach. Don't get me wrong. Look at the things he was able to do in Florida. Take that SEC spin and bring it to the Big Ten. However, I feel like that's going to be one hell of a game in Ann Arbor. Urban Meyer, Jim Harbaugh. Right now I want to give the edge to the Maize and Blue. I feel like Cardell Jones is going to screw up in that game. JT Barrett's going to come in and he can't save the day. Broxton Miller might have to go back to playing quarterback that day.
No, I don't agree. I don't think that your little boys in blue or whatever you called them,
Maize and Blue,
whatever sissy term you called them. Yeah, it's not going to happen like that. It's not even going to get to the point where Cardale Jones would screw up in that game. He would he will have already screwed up in another game if he's out. If he's still in, it means he's still the guy and he's still doing good things. But
Can
if
I
he's
ask you a
not,
question?
he's out. Well before then. Yeah, sure. What's your question?
Okay, my question is, November 21st, Ohio State plays Michigan State at home. Does that game, win or lose, affect Ohio State going into the Michigan game November 28th? Either win or lose, does that game against Michigan State affect what kind of a Buckeyes team we see in the regular season finale in Ann Arbor?
Well, certainly. I think if it's a win, it's a big kind of
morale boost.
Morale boost. Yeah, I'm trying to think of an.
They're gonna come out.
I almost said an uprising, but it's not. But it's a morale boost. It really it'll put them on a pedestal, saying we've still got this. If they lose that game, then we may see the change in quarterback, and we may see a different game against Michigan.
Let's say, for the sake of argument, they lose to Michigan State. If they lose, and they being the Buckeyes, they lose to Michigan State, do you think against Michigan we're going to see a Buckeye team that looks shell-shocked and gets beat by Michigan, or a Buckeye team that comes in saying, hey, we've made the playoff with one loss before.
You're going to see a Buckeye team.
Out here and
you're going to see a Buckeye team that's going to go out there and they're going to fight no matter what. They're not going to look depleted. They're not going to look run down. They're not going to look sorry for themselves. That's not the way that the Ohio State does it.
The Ohio State.
That's
University.
not the way they do it. You will not see that.
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State's coming to play. That's for sure.
I want to ask you one more question about Michigan before we get to our secret picks.
Let's get off this fucking Michigan shit.
One thing, and it's only because I saw them, and you love this team I'm going to bring up. Give me a percentage that on October 10th in Ann Arbor, Northwestern beats Michigan. And then we stop talking about Michigan forever.
Thank God,
lost.
75%. 75%.
You think Northwestern can... Because they're another team that in the Big Ten could surprise people, especially how bad they looked last year.
Well, they've shown that they can shut down an offense with their defense. They did that with Stanford. Did you see Stanford's offense?
And then Stanford
USC?
played the Trojans, and it was like, whoa, that's what they look like?
Yeah. So, yes, Northwestern, 75% chance that they will beat Michigan.
Okay. We got our secret picks. You can check out our...
Finally, we're done talking about Michigan. My gosh, I felt like I was like, oh my gosh, like going to Michigan.
You can check out our picks video on the Most Valuable Podcast YouTube page. But what we do, if you're new to the podcast, on top of our 5 weekly picks on the YouTube channel, this is where we get the secret pick of the week. I don't know what's coming from Brandon. He doesn't know what game is coming from me. Brandon, go first. What game do I get?
You get North Carolina at Georgia Tech.
Oh, that's a tough one. At Georgia Tech?
Correct. If it helps, it's on at 2:30 on ESPNU. Georgia Tech lost 2 in a row.
I know, and North Carolina's looked good.
But they beat Illinois.
I know.
That's not right.
They looked good.
That's not right.
Illinois looked like shit in that game. Let's be honest.
I know.
I'm gonna go with North Carolina on the road. Don't fail me now. Yours is gonna be. I'll give you a hint. You ready?
Yeah, sure. You know how I do with your hints, not well.
Big 10 conference game.
Okay.
Big 12 conference game.
Big 10 or Big 12?
Big 10.
You said Big 10 and then Big 12. Which one is it?
Big 10.
Big 22.
The Big 10.
The Big 22. Okay. Big 10. Big 10 conference game. Big 10 conference game.
What do you think? Who do you think I'm going to give you?
Well, I haven't thought of anything yet, so hold on.
Tell me if you give up.
Big Ten Conference game. Minnesota Northwestern.
Boom. That's it.
All right.
I was either floating between that or Nebraska, Illinois, but then I'm like, you know what? He likes Northwestern. Let's give him a team that he doubted early in Minnesota and your Wildcats.
Minnesota on the road, Northwestern. It's in Evanston. Northwestern, number 16. They are taking down the Golden Gophers.
Minnesota's only loss was a 23-17 loss to, at the time, number 2 TCU. A team they played tough.
Oh, thanks, Ricky, for that stat. Now, let me tell you Northwestern's only loss. Oh, they don't fucking have one.
No, they're 4-0.
There you go.
4-0. So you're going to go with the Wildcats on that one?
Yeah, I'm going with them.
We'll see how things turn out. I went North Carolina over Georgia Tech. Brandon goes Northwestern over Minnesota. That's going to do it this week for the Primetime Podcast. This is where you guys, if you haven't already, go leave a comment in the comment section. Tell us anything about what we talked about today. Do you agree with anything that we said? Disagree with what we said? Make sure to go follow me on Twitter at Ricky Widmer. Brandon is at young_swan19. Most Valuable Podcast is at Most Valuable Pod. If you're on the YouTube channel, go ahead, hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps us out. SoundCloud, you're going to want to go ahead, hit that repost and follow button. Thank you guys again for checking out this podcast. And as always, have a good day, everybody.
Thank you for listening to this MVP podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Most Valuable Pod for more great podcasts.